Elements that I like to see for a good grip. We're going to start with our top hand. So for me as a right-handed player, that's going to be my left hand. And this is going to be the important one as far as how we're going to position this on the golf club, where I kind of see the most mistakes. Most players' clubs will have a little bit of a mark on the top of the grip. With mine, you won't be able to see this, but there is this small little line at the top of the grip. So take a look at your clubs. Quite often there'll be a triangle or a V, some kind of little marking, and we're going to use that as a reference point. And how we're going to use it is we're going to take the heel of the palm of our top hand, so again it's going to be my left hand, and I'm going to place this on the club in a way that I'm going to be covering up that line or covering up that little mark at the top of your grip. And the checkpoint here, once you have this top hand placed on, you want to be able to make this hinging motion. So I'm trying to get my wrist to hinge to roughly 90 degrees, and I want to be able to do that without having to manipulate the club face. So if I point this towards the camera, I'm going to put my top hand on here, I'm going to cover that mark. I want the toe of the club pointed straight up, and as I hinge this back, I don't want to have to rotate this club face. So if I had my top hand on incorrectly, quite often I'll see people, they'll show up or they'll have their hand a little bit more along the side of the club this way. And then what happens is, as I try to make that hinging motion, I kind of get locked out right about here. My wrist won't actually move anymore unless I rotate the club face, and now it's going to hinge no problem. But I've created a bit of a directional problem because now my club face isn't pointed where I want it to be. So to put my hand back more on top, I'm able to hinge without rotating the club face. So this would be the checkpoint to make sure that you've got your top hand on this club in a way that's going to allow you to hinge it without rotating the club face. And this motion here is important because in our swing, once we start swinging, as I bring this club back, I'm looking to create this hinge, so this L look to my swing as I'm swinging this club around me in a circle. My wrist is going to hinge, it's going to unhinge, and then rehinge on the other side. And I want to be able to do that or make that motion without having my club face also rotate as I do that. I want it to stay fairly square. So again, here's the checkpoint. Can you hinge your wrist while maintaining that toe of the club pointed straight up? And you can just do this as a bit of a habit for a little while till it gets comfortable. Just before every shot, give this a couple quick hinges. Make sure you've got that top hand on in a good place. Your bottom hand, we'll keep this fairly simple. I'm going to take my thumb. I'm going to create a little pocket with my right hand. You've got your lifeline going down here. And I'm just going to put my thumb right in that pocket and then wrap my fingers around. And what you do on this side, I'll come a little closer to the camera. There's a few options here. I can have all 10 fingers. I can place all 10 fingers on the club. I can overlap my pinky with my index finger here. And the third option would be to interlock them. And there's really no preference whether you go 10 fingers, overlap, or interlock. For now, just try all three out and see if one feels a little better for you. Okay? And then the last thing would be, how tight do I hold the club? So on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 was like a death grip, and 0 would be the club flying out of your hand, think of starting at about a 3. So I'll usually take my grip, get this feel. If I rotate this club around a little bit, I can feel the weight of that club head making these circles. So I don't want to be holding on so tight that there's too much tension there. Okay, so that's the definition of a good grip, one that allows you to hinge this club properly without rotating the club face. One, of course, that's going to let you hold on to it. And then one that's going to, as you're swinging, we stand a chance of bringing this club face back to impact pointing in the direction where we want the ball to go. Okay, so if you're only going to get one of those things, I'd say this top hand is the most important. Just make sure you're able to hinge your wrist this way. Test that out before every shot or when you're practicing until that starts to feel comfortable.